Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're trying to look into the future a little bit and seeing what's happening over in the OCG and using some information from over there to tell us a little bit about where the game is going to go here. They just had a brand new set released, Power of the Elements, and it's looking like an absolute game changer, bringing with it some really powerful new archetypes with top tier potential. Of course, tons of people pay attention to the new cards as they are revealed over there so that they can be the most knowledgeable for when the cards are eventually released here in the TCG. And as a result, we've seen several buyouts of cards here, even though the set isn't due to come out until August. Today we are going to break down some of these buyouts that we're seeing so that you guys know what cards people are going to have their eyes on for the next several months. Let's get started. Alright, so to kick things off, we're taking a look at Toadally Awesome. So of course the hottest deck to come out in Power of the Elements is the Splight deck, a strategy that revolves around using level, rank, and link to monsters. The Splight monsters themselves can do some really cool things like search for each other or put up negates. The deck actually also uses the Frog and Deep Sea Diva engines to help get multiple level 2 monsters onto the board to facilitate certain plays, and since Frogs and Deep Sea Diva are all water monsters, it should come as no surprise that they use Toadally Awesome, the best rank 2 monster in the game, as a part of their end boards. We all know what Toad is by now, providing that valuable Omni Negate that can steal your opponent's card. It also summons a frog out of your deck in defense mode as well. Now over the weekend we saw the first OCG tournament results with Splight being available to use, and it took over a ton of the meta. One of my friends actually mentioned to me that the Splight deck took 30 out of top 32 spots at an event, which is almost as clean of a sweep as the Boston Celtics over the Brooklyn Nets, though I can't really tell which one was more surprising. Because of this, Toads were bought out almost instantly. We saw the secret rares up to $60 to $65 a piece for a short while, though since then people have relisted them. The originals from Invasion Vengeance have cooled down to around $35, and the Megaton reprints are down to about $30. The gold rares from Maximum Gold actually still have managed to creep on upwards, though. They are now sitting at around $15 to $16 a piece after first spiking up to $12. I definitely think that given how strong Splight is over there, it's going to also be a pretty strong deck here once it's released in the TCG, so don't expect the hype for Toad to cool down too soon. However, do keep in mind that it will most likely be reprinted before then. My guess personally is that it's going to get a rarity bump either as an ultimate rare or a collector's rare, and then get another printing in some sort of side set or reprint set to help improve the card's accessibility. Up next, we have kind of an obscure yet adorable little card. It is Cat Shark. This card is another rank 2 monster that is being hyped up because of the Splight deck, though despite being generic, it is a bit more situational than Toadally Awesome. This is a card that can help you to push for game. You simply detach a material from it to target a rank 4 or lower Xyz monster on your side of the field and double its attack and defense points for the rest of the turn. Now naturally, in a deck featuring a lot of level 2 monsters, it might be hard to push for a lot of damage and win the game, but doing so is actually possible with Cat Shark as an extra deck option, and I believe this is a standard part of the Splight extra deck now. Cat Shark only has one printing from Premium Gold 2, which I think was called Return of the Bling, a set that came out back in 2015, so 7 years ago now. The buyout of this card was pretty quick and easy to see coming. This card that only used to be worth $1 or $2 is now an $8 to $9 card. I think this is definitely another card that's due for an accessibility reprint, though to be fair, we don't know exactly when that is going to be. Expect this card to float between $6 to $10 until either the card gets reprinted or the Splight deck officially is released here in the TCG, whichever comes first. Alright, so on to one other Splight related card for us to look at, and then we'll move on to some other things. We have Swap Frog. So as I mentioned when I was talking about Toadally Awesome, the Splight deck typically makes use of Swap Frog, and it's a card that can do some really cool things. Swap Frog dumps a level 2 or lower Aqua monster from your deck to the graveyard, even when it's special summoned, right? So if you get to summon it off of the Splight Xyz monsters effect, you still get that dump. This lets you load up your graveyard with a couple of other frogs to set up a Toadally Awesome play. And then the other thing you can do is that it doesn't need to return itself to the hand. You can bounce another monster that you control. So one neat thing that they are doing in the OCG is they're either using Halki Fibrax to summon out a hand trap like Ash Blossom, or even the Splight Xyz effect to bring out Maxi, and then using Swap Frog's effect to bounce that hand trap back to your hand for use next turn. This is some crazy value, and it's no wonder that the Frog engine is the engine of choice for Splight decks. As a result, we've seen the different rarities of Swap Frog go up all across the board. Most notably, the ultimate rares have gone absolutely crazy. We saw them shoot up to around $200 a few days ago, but actually within the last couple of days, we've seen some moving on TCG Player at around the $270 mark, which is obviously insane. But worth noting still is the ultra rares from Dual Overload going from $1 to now being $4 to $5, and the commons that are now $2 to $3 each. It feels like Swap Frog has quite a few printings, but really it just has the 3, and the ultimate rare is extremely difficult to find. If you guys feel like you have some extra copies of Swap Frog sitting around in your bulk at home, you might want to take some time and dig them up over the next couple of months, because the Frog engine will definitely be a hot one when Power of the Elements is officially released in August. Next up, we're looking at another card that kind of feels like it's from out of nowhere. We have the original Shaddoll Fusion. So with the Albaz Strike Structure deck coming out, it does feel like all of the different fusion strategies got that little bit stronger, and I think Shaddolls shouldn't really be any exception. They can still use Shaddoll Fusion to dump materials from the deck for some crazy value, and I also believe there was even a Shaddoll deck that topped like a regional or something a couple of weeks ago, though to be fair, I think that was before the Albaz stuff was released. However, what's really cool is the new Tier Elements deck that's coming out in Power of the Elements. They are a mill-based strategy where the monsters get to fuse with materials from your graveyard when they are sent to the graveyard, including when they're milled, and you fuse by putting the materials back into your deck. I saw a couple of really cool replays online you can make with the Shaddoll cards and the Tier Elements, where you get to put a Tier Element monster and a Shaddoll back into the deck to make Winda during your opponent's turn, even during their turn 0 when they're going first, which honestly is kind of insane. I would assume that in such a deck, you also play Shaddoll Fusion, since it's still an awesome card to have access to when you're going second. And even if you mill it, you can add it back to your hand with one of your Shaddoll Fusion monsters. Interestingly enough, the card's secret rare reprint from Shadows in Valhalla is the most expensive at $7 each, and then the other super rare printings are between that $3 to $6 range, the Structure Deck super rare being a bit cheaper, but the original from Duelist Alliance being a bit more expensive, though all of them have relatively few quantities available on TCG Player at the moment. I personally think that the Tier Element deck is really cool. I'm looking forward to giving it a try. If you also want to try it out, consider picking up the Shaddoll cards now before any more hype starts to build, while it seems like most people are focusing on the Splight. On to the next card, we have King of the Swamp. So this is another card being looked at as a tech choice in the Tier Element strategy. It is one of the cards that can be substituted for any specific card name when you're conducting a fusion summon. So because of this, I think there are a couple of interesting things you can make using King of the Swamp, such as Invoked Kaliga and Millennium Eyes Restrict. However, it also can be discarded to search for a copy of Polymerization, which can be used to fuse Tier Elements from your hand or field and send them to the graveyard to proc your mill effects and sort of get your engine going if you were otherwise bricked. Now with this card, there are a couple of higher rarity printings that are pricier. There's a super rare Hobby League version that's quite expensive. I believe on TCG Player right now, you can't buy them for anything less than $100, but in terms of actual sold listings that we can see, the most that anyone has sold for is $60. There's also a dual terminal printing that is more affordable at around $9 to $10. Other than that, the card does have several common and rare printings. If I were you guys, I would definitely consider picking up the Fusion Enforcer super rares for only $1 or $2. Obviously, with all of the attention on Splight right now, I think not many players are focusing on the Tier Elements and what they can do, but I think the deck does have a ton of potential and could definitely be a meta choice if it were to receive another wave of support in the future. Okay, so this is a pretty interesting card here. It is Dynamorphia Therizia. So over in the OCG, on the most recent ban list, we actually had Rite of Ramesir and the Water Enchantress hit to 1. And while some people have tried to make the Adventurer token package work, it just isn't really the same. As a result, some players have actually dropped that package in favor of a Dynamorphia package featuring some new support that we have coming out in Dimension Force. There's a new trap that allows you to fuse with materials from your deck and extra deck, and then a new fusion monster that is basically a walking skill drain. And Therizia lets you search out for the trap, so basically you're running 6 copies of the trap to get you started. Now, I don't know exactly how good this engine would be here in the TCG. In the OCG, they have much more hits to the Adventurer token package, the DPE engine, and so on. So the Dynamorphia package is kind of like the next best thing that they have available. Obviously here we still have those engines intact, though who knows what will be happening on the next TCG ban list. However, because of the potential that this engine has to be the next big thing, we've seen Therizia spike in price over the last week. This card was one of the less impressive cards in the set Battle of Chaos, sitting between $6 to $8 for the last month or so. However, seemingly overnight, the card has shot up to where it's now $30 a piece, which is quite a bit for a card that is only viable in theory right now. Unfortunately, if you wanted to play Dynamorphias or pick up the engine, you're going to have to pay up. Battle of Chaos isn't due to be reprinted until the 2023 Megatins, which are quite a long ways away. If I were you guys, I would wait until after Dimension Force comes out and after the upcoming ban list to see what happens before I make a decision. If the Dynamorphia engine isn't seeing play because the other engines in the game are still intact, which I think is the most likely option, the hype for Therizia should cool off just enough for you to buy into them before the card inevitably increases back up in price for the following ban list after that. Alright, one last card to look at briefly. It is Bahalutia, the Grand Radiance. Now this is kind of an odd one. It's basically like a Trickstar reincarnation where they take the top however many cards are in their hand from the top of their deck, they set that aside, then they shuffle the hand into the deck, and then those cards that you set aside become their new hand. It's one of those things where the value is in the disruption, right? Kind of like Disturbance Strategy or Trickstar Reincarnation, since if your opponent just searched, they're less likely to see a copy of the card now that their hand has been mixed up, which is kind of cool. And theoretically, Bahalutia also gives you a body to work with on the board. Now, interestingly enough, the card did go from $1 a few days ago to now being $3 on TCG Player. However, I'm here to tell you guys that this card is definitely not a buy at the $3 mark, and if you can get $3 for a copy of this card, go ahead and sell them right away. I don't see this card as being relevant in the game anytime soon, so I would hate to see you guys wasting your money on something like this. Now, part of the reason for the spike is that MCole40 advised that this card might be a worthwhile penny stock, but when this card was $1, right, I would say that's correct. If you can buy this card for $1 in its original secret rare printing, that's not a bad hold because it is such a low risk investment. But at the $3 price point, this card just isn't worth your money. I would rather have you guys buy like 2 common copies of Dark Ruler No More from the Albaz Strike Structure deck, rather than wasting your time and energy on a card like this one. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. Definitely a pretty interesting series of cards here. It's looking like Power of the Elements is going to be a really important set that shakes up the game, so I'm excited to see exactly what it brings to the table. It'll also be interesting to see exactly how the ban list plays into those cards that are about to come out as well. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please do let me know by slamming that thumbs up button for me. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today and what other cards are trending on the market so that I can cover them in a future episode as well. Also, if you haven't already, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel, guys. And until next time, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.